For joining us for week 2 of the grounding in our series on breaking the silence on suicide. Last week we were joined by Brother Uthman Al-Talib, where we really just kind of opened the floor to this discussion. This week we're going to be continuing it with a huge focus on like hope, healing, finding your innate sense of value and the value that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you with. We're again joined by Brother Uthman Al-Talib, founder of Rise Coaching and a usual khatib here at Adam Center and frequent speaker for a couple of events. And we're joined by our new speaker, Brother Abdul Wahab As-Sarraj. He is the chair at Adam Center Saudi, and he's also the president and founder of I Will Coaching, which is a coaching service, and they also offer, I believe, therapeutic and therapy services too, right? So we have two very, I think, qualified speakers for this subject. Again, it's a very serious subject, a very introspective, very deep subject. It might be a subject that touches a lot of you very, very personally. So I want you to be like emotionally prepared and grounded for when you deal with this. If you need any assistance, services, or anything like that, we do have papers on every single chair, which have a lot of like hotlines and resources specifically related to suicide. Again, we're very glad you came to us. We really hope that this is a valuable discussion, inshallah. And yeah, we hope you enjoy it. So without any further delay, I'm going to hand it off to the two speakers.
We'll get some pens, inshallah. Sure. Inshallah, before we get started, so you have some papers in front of you and some sticky notes. Inshallah, we'll be passing out some pens. So one thing that I probably encourage you to do as we're going through the discussion, since it is a heavy discussion, if there's thoughts, if there's questions, if there's such emotions and you want to capture it, just write it down. And sometimes, inshallah, we'll open up the floor for questions. And then if you don't feel comfortable asking the question, at least you have something in writing. We can, pass that to us, inshallah, and we'll be able to answer it and have a dialogue. I pass the mic to Brother Uthman.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا وحبيبنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن استنى ودعا إلى سنته إلى يوم الدين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. So alhamdulillah, before we begin everything, it's important to just ground our own selves in how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala began his book. And so we'll read the Fatiha together and ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses this gathering and makes it a blessed opening for all of us. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, maliki yawmiddin, iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Alhamdulillah, we're here for another week. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the opportunity and just to also ground ourselves in the moment. Last week I had everybody introduce themselves to their neighbor because it's something that is a lost sunnah upon us many times, that we spread the salam to each other. And it's an important way also for these types of topics for us to feel safe with the people that we're around. And it's important for us even as speakers to feel safe because this is an environment that we hope is open for us to be able to share information with each other, share emotions with each other, and just even sharing the space itself for something that is so personal is something that inshallah we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put blessings in for us. So we'll take just a few moments to introduce ourselves to the people around us, and even sharing in hugs actually has very impactful and meaningful impact. Impactful, meaningful. And so inshallah we'll do that as well. Again, Khalid, right? Yes.
I know you 4 years. Okay, I'll take it. I'm gonna finish Allah. Pleasure to meet
Alhamdulillah. So these are, many times, these are the formalities we overlook.
Thank you.
And it's actually these simple acts that go such a long, long way for people to feel cared for. And, there are two things in life that we're always searching for: a sense of belonging and the resistance of pain. Two things that every human being is always searching for. Where do I belong? Where will I feel cared for? Where will I feel safe? And then where do I go to protect myself, to prevent myself from feeling pain, from being harmed, from being hurt? And so those things are where we spend a lot of energy trying to figure out the space between the two of those. And so, if this is anything, inshallah, every opportunity you get whenever you're in gatherings, take the time to get to know each other and the people around you. And just that simple act of even asking somebody, hey, what's your name? It's great to see you, smiling in their faces. It's something that is powerful, and it's a sadaqah, as the Prophet ﷺ told us, that it's not just something for the other person, but it's also something for yourself, right? The more that you smile on the face of your brother or your sister, there's a state that changes within yourself. And so it's these little things that we sometimes overlook in our tradition that actually make the biggest difference in the human interaction. Bismillah. So last week I gave a brief just intro into why we're here, and really just kind of explaining these next 3 weeks as just the beginning. We are absolutely not going to cover everything related to suicide. We are not going to sit and go through every type of scenario and cases and how do we understand the multifaceted nature of a challenge that is so deeply human that it's just not going to be possible. And so this is just the beginning. And I said this very openly last week, that the intention with this is just even having a flyer that bolds the word suicide and posting that on social media under the name and the apparatus of a masjid and a community space, and just that is a victory, because this is a topic that has been for so many years and continues to be shied away from and put into the shadows. And as you'll hear from both Brother Abdul Wahab and myself, it's no longer a luxury to talk about these things, it's a necessity. And so our why is really to just start the conversation, and that inshallah this will prepare us as a community to go deeper and deeper in further types of gatherings like this, where we can talk more openly, we can talk more practically, and we can talk more thoughtfully about the challenges that people in our community and maybe even ourselves and our own families are going through in relation to suicide. Another thing that I just want to summarize from last week that I really walked away with, and I was telling this to Brother Abdul Wahab, was how surprised I was when we started the discussion. I asked the simple question. I said, how many people, raise your hands on how many people have more than one person that they could reach out to when problems really get tough in their life? And only a few people raised their hands. And then I said, okay, so how many people then, less than zero? And then we had a couple folks raise their hands. So that means the majority of the room, which the room was filled, which will probably get filled very soon, inshallah. The majority of the room only had one person that they felt comfortable enough to reach out to and really go deep with if something is happening in life that just feels overwhelming. And that really scared me. It really scared me because how can we be moving and traversing such pressure and difficult life with only having one person to reach out to? And if they don't answer, what happens? That person is not available, what happens? If I don't do the double tap on that person, what happens? That's a very scary thought to me. And And actually, a big part of the intention that I want us to set together is that this space and the people that you meet here, you're not just coming here to listen. I want us to actually walk away with thinking through, can I increase from 1 to 2 even? Can I increase from 2 to 3? Can I increase from, and I do this with my clients all the time, I don't know if you do this, but the Prophet ﷺ, he told us that a person, when they die, if 40 people who are righteous pray janazah on them, they will be the shafa'ah, they will be an intercessor on behalf of that person to enter into paradise. And so the question that I always challenge my clients is, can you give me 40 people that will show up to your janazah? With it, they'll drop everything and they will just come, just so that they can fulfill the right that you had on them as your brother or your sister. A lot of people struggle with that. A lot of people say, I can't even think of 40. I can't even think of 10. It's a very scary thought. So I want us to truly make intentions that we improve in that capacity, and that spaces like this hopefully jolt the system to understand how serious it can be when we move through life and we don't have those deeper connections. So that's one reflection that I walked away with. The second reflection that I had told Brother Abdul Wahab as well was what? I can't remember either. It'll come, inshallah. So either way, it'll probably come to me at some point. It's been a long day. But I'm very happy that at least last week I had spent the time going through understanding the almost the intersection of so many different challenges that lead a person to take a very permanent solution to temporary problems that they're going through, which is taking their life through suicide. And so I was happy to be joined now this week, alhamdulillah, with Brother Abdul Wahab, and I want him to be able to introduce himself to you and really jumpstart, inshallah, this conversation that we have for today.
جزاك الله خير بدر عثمان. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم آمين. First, I want to thank each and every one of you. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here tonight to talk about such an important discussion. My name is Abdul Wahab Sarraj, originally from Sudan. Born in Sudan, moved to UAE, lived there for about 13, 14 years, and then we moved here at 14 years old, and we've been here since. A lot of the work that I did is, in the mental health aspect of things. I was a therapist, created a company where we did some therapeutic services as far as outpatient and therapy. And then from there, we created our coaching roughly about 8 years ago to start to look into filling the gaps in the community. So with therapy, there's an umbrella, and then subhanAllah, you have to be under. But with mentoring and therapeutic mentoring, I think we're able to navigate such, so we're able to fill in the gaps. And alhamdulillah, a lot of the things that we talk about is those topics that no one wants to talk about. Suicide is one of those very heavy topics. And I want to share a personal story with you. As growing up in Sudan, my dad's side of the family, alhamdulillah, it's a large side of the family. We have about 21 uncles and aunties. We always joked about having 11 uncles and 11 aunties, subhanAllah, growing up. And part of the conversation as a young child growing up and vivid, remember my grandpa and grandma and some of my uncles, the older uncles. At times you walk into rooms and you see grandma crying. And of course you ask that simple question of like, are you okay? As a young child, that's just a simple question you ask. And the first thing that comes out of her mind is to wipe the tears and just brush it off. Everything's okay, just keep it moving. As we grow a little bit older and start to get to know our family members, subhanAllah, the conversation about 20 of my uncles and aunties, it's always say they're around, we ask questions, and there's one missing auntie that we never knew much about. We asked that question about where's auntie such and such, and the answer is always, she passed away at a young age, subhanAllah. And that's what we took, from it. And then as we got older and we started to dive a little more deeper into rahim and visiting uncles and aunties and trying to understand and unpack some of it, I found out that she actually committed suicide at a young age. I think she was 17 years old when she took her own life. And subhanAllah, so that was part of the conversation as growing up to dive in. Alhamdulillah, I have a great relationship with a lot of my uncles and aunties. So I'm asking them question about what happened. And subhanAllah is such a taboo topic that a lot of times it's very dismissive, or they don't want to talk about it because they don't want to open up the wounds from what's going on. And and the more I'm very persistent as far as some of my questions, because my thought process is to try to understand the environment that she grew up in, and on how the impact of her taking her own life on her parents, her uncles and aunties, her brothers and sisters, and then the nephews and nieces that we grew up in that same household. And for some of you who are a little bit older and understand, just like the dynamics back home, you're living at the family home. So you have the grandpa, the grandma, and then all the aunties and uncles, and then all the siblings in that same household. It's completely different nowadays. So we grew up close to one another. And that void of having, an auntie who took her own life, which is that's a very taboo topic that no one wants to talk about. Fast forward many, many, many years ago, later, now I'm having the dialogue with my father and having a dialogue with my uncles about what happened. Mental health was one of those things that came up, that she was going through depression, and subhanAllah, she kept it in. She did not have that, she didn't have the courage, and that's what my dad said, to have the dialogue with her father and mother, because it was such a large family, and she felt like she was a number within that family. So that connection between her and her father and her mother wasn't there. So the question when I asked my dad about that, like, how did you feel as a young child losing a sister to something like this? We initially was like, we were so confused, we did not understand it, and we did not dare to ask questions, because every time we brought that topic up, it was shut down by their father, subhanAllah. So subhanAllah, and then, so you go around that, and now, grew up, alhamdulillah, and, start getting myself into this field of the mental health, and, and dealing and helping and working with clients who are having some suicide ideations and suicide attempts and suicide thoughts and suicide plans, and subhanAllah, and then be able to navigate and trying to bring it back into the core issues, like as far as like, where is it? Like why, like, how can a person get to a level where they feel hopeless in a way where the decision for them to relieve the pain is by them taking, their own life? And again, it's such a, but again, there's a lot of complexity behind it. And I think part of the conversation here is for us to maybe look at it as an onion and need to just peel the onion a little bit and try to understand a little bit of what's going on and what will push a person to get to that level. So this is part of the conversation that I think, inshallah, we'll try to address a little bit. The second thing that inshallah we'll talk about today is some coping skills from two different levels. As a person who's going through whatever that is that you're going through, and then as an individual who knows someone or you're related to someone, and as what is your role? How are you able to help and support that individual who's going through whatever that is that they're going through? And then inshallah, the last part of it will be, as a community, what can we do as a community to continue to raise awareness, to talk about the topic? I mean, subhanAllah is one of those topics that, just going through, like, we don't talk about it unless we know someone that take their own life, or, once a year when it's Suicide Awareness Month, and we put a flyer up and we just have a couple conversations, surface level conversations, and we just keep the conversation going. So this is what again, here it's not about, I think inshallah this program is not about finding every solution to every single answer. So we want to do it a little bit different. And inshallah, like this, as we go through today, we wanted to make it a bit more interactive. Questions that as an individual that you have, inshallah, to ask, and we'll be able to navigate and answer. And then inshallah, when no one have any questions, we'll dive into more about, again, some of the symptoms and things that we can do as individuals, and then as people who are in a supportive level. So inshallah, this is just how I wanted to look into. You have some, pen and papers right in front of you. Alhamdulillah, there is some, and this is for you to take home. And this is an important thing for you. These are some resources, some just the very general community resources that you can take pictures and send it to people that you know. Inshallah, next week, we're diving a little more into, again, more of this, right? Having some more resources, live resources, and talk a little bit more about solutions, but more resources based, inshallah, that'll be next week. So this is just a general idea about how inshallah we'll be able to navigate this. But I wanted just to, from your thoughts, as I'm sharing some of my stories and saying what I'm saying, probably have some thoughts that came to your mind. Maybe you see a picture of an individual that you know, someone who's going through something that at some point that was provoked by some of the comments that I mentioned, or maybe the story that I shared. And this is what I want you to capture down in this paper. A name, story, a feeling, a thought that came to mind, a question that you would like to get answered by the end of this workshop, inshallah. So these are just, again, some groundwork. The second thing that I wanted to mention, that this is a safe space. Inshallah, I know we're, live streaming, but the thing about it is, this use this space to talk, to share, to encourage one another, to support one another. Because at some point, I think Brother Uthman mentioned it very, very, very well. Again, that exercise of hugging one another, get to know one another. And if a person is here, they have some type of interest in this specific topic for a reason, one or two, whatever reason that is. So some people take that, let's embrace that in the sense, let's take it for that reason. So inshallah, let's go back a little bit and talk about just the mental health aspect of it. And this is such a broad topic to talk about.
You wanted to stop?
Yes.
Any comments or thoughts, just even before we take the next step? Just to open it up for you all to start to get a little bit comfortable with the conversation in the room.
Can we do questions as well, or just comments and thoughts?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, personally, alhamdulillah, I have never felt this urge to commit such like a permanent act. But subhanAllah, I've had friends that have been very close and didn't tell anyone at the time, and months later would say, oh, by the way, I was literally about to kill myself. And the only reason I didn't was not because someone intervened for me, but because of just a feeling, right? And Allah, right? So when you're talking to those type of people and you know that they're still going through it, but the only thing that has prevented them from taking their life is the fact that Allah has given them miracle after miracle, and they don't know how to reach out, or maybe they're even opposed to reaching out. What would the first step be in that process for you to support them? Jazakallah.
No, I just want to say one thing, and then I want you to take over. My dream as a community is that the onus doesn't fall on the person that's suffering. That's my dream. My dream is that we are actually so proactive as a community of believers and lovers of each other that the onus doesn't fall on the person who's actually going through the pain and the anguish in that moment to sit and think, who should I reach out? Who can I be vulnerable enough? But actually, we're so proactive that they're overwhelmed with the number of people that are reaching out that it's like, so I just wanted to say that's my dream. And then the real answer.
SubhanAllah, I think it's all about the individuals. Every single person, you said, probably we know, have parents, have friends, have co-workers, have people that know them. I think it starts by us acknowledging the shift in behaviors. So if an individual who is active, communicative, reaching out, show up to different events, do it, and then all of a sudden you start to miss that individual. They're isolated, they're sitting home, they're battling emotions, they're not talking as they used to. I think this is where the responsibility of the community for us to recognize that. I think recognizing the sign is very, very critical. I think the sooner we recognize the signs, probably the better it is for us to go in and try to approach help. So that's one. I think if you recognize an individual who will not be in themselves, one of the things is not to dismiss. Sometimes when individuals are going through whatever that is that they're going through, they're very resistant to help. So if you pick up the phone and reach out and say, are you okay? What the answers can be, I'm good, I don't need any help. Part of it is, again, avoidance. Part of it is they don't want to burden you with whatever that is that they're holding. Part of it is, depression. Part of it is anxiety. Part of it is hopelessness. Part of it is lack of motivation, and again, lack of support that's around, and maybe lack of community members that will go in and say, are you okay? So I think that's the first step for us to recognize the signs. The second thing, once we recognize the sign, I think, again, the idea is that sometimes it's not to find solutions. It's just to create the space of asking, are you okay? Sometimes being persistent as far as like, hey man, what's going on? Let's go to this together, let's play some basketball together, let's go play some video games together. Just that general check-in, subhanAllah, that might actually release something as far as like, you know what, let me reach out and check in with them. So this is something that being persistent and then creating that space that you're not here to judge. And then one of the things that I want to talk about from a community perspective is to avoid the concept of gossip. This is one of the major issues that we tend to see in our community. When someone shares something with you in confidence, that, you know what, I feel this way, or you know what, I mean, I'm thinking about killing myself and I'm hopeless, you know, in that sense. Then all of a sudden, 4, 5, 6, 7 other people hear about it. Then all of a sudden, this individual that came to you and trusted you with such heavy topic, all of a sudden, their business is all over the place. What do you think that individual will do next time around? They will not share anything with you because they'll lose that trust. So I think this is very critical for us to provide the environment where we validate feelings. It's never about solutions. Being persistent in a sense and avoid some questions, like some solutions. I mean, one of the things what some of my clients will say when someone come to them and say, you know what, just be patient, or you know what, other people are going through something worse than whatever that is that you're going through, or you know what, inshallah, Allah will take care of it. So without any proper plan in this sense, just like, you know what, just leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or you know what, that's not such a big deal, or trying to compare it to someone else. That's not what people want to hear. They just want to hear, like, are you okay? How can I help? Just being persistent as far as like checking in. I have some clients I will say to them, I'll check in with you every single day. And I'll do it. Every single day I'll reach out, and how are you doing? How are you doing? What's going on? What do you need? What do you need? 99% of the time, I'm good. I don't need anything. That's perfect. But for me, I know that they're alive that day, right? And then the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day. And sometimes I do send in some events that's going on, or send in some things that I'm doing, and then all of a sudden they show up. Then it's part of that community, and then slowly we start to look into solutions. But I think the biggest thing is recognizing the sign early on. And as a parent, as a father, as a mother, as a grandparent, as an uncle, as an auntie, as a brother, as a sister, as a friend, as a cousin, you'll be able to tell if someone did not themselves. So hopefully that answered some of that question.
Let me just even go deeper into what you're saying, because I think it's so powerful on both of those points. The first point about that recognize the signs means that you have to know them well enough. Like, there is a precondition to knowing what does different look like. That means you already know what the baseline looks like. And that's genuinely, we just got to get to know each other on a deeper, less superficial level, and actually like understand what baseline does look like, so that when there are changes, we recognize it, we can see it. And the second part that you're mentioning about the like not checking, what would you categorize the second part as?
I mean, just offering that space, a safe space.
Okay, that's what you said. Vocabulary. I do think there's a challenge that we have as a community, and this came up last week as well, where a lot of people are like, I don't know what to say, right? I do think there is a communication course that we have to do as a community on what not to say, and like how to communicate without thinking you need to know what to say. Because a lot of times actually saying like, I really don't know what to say in this moment, and all I can say to you is like, I love you. All I can say to you is like, I'm here for you. I don't know anything else beyond that. I don't know what other vocabulary to use with you outside of like, I care for you. And then you have somebody here that I'll be with you every step. What do you need from me? A lot of times it's like this whole thing about jumping towards solutions, or thinking that saying these other like euphemisms is actually going to solve the problem, is really the lack of our own emotional intelligence with ourselves, and a lack of our maturity from a vocabulary and communication standpoint. So I do believe 100% we as a Muslim community, because we have been taught an Islam that sometimes is very superficial. We actually lose the nuances of how Jawami' al-Kalim, like the Prophet ﷺ's phrasings were very precise for the moments and the people and the individuals that he was dealing, and the situations that he was dealing with. That's actually part of the Sunnah as well. It's not just a byproduct of like, oh, he's just, the best of breed. No, it's like he took the time to have emotional vocabulary that was mature enough for the situation, and he had the emotional intelligence to be able to understand what this person needs to hear in the moment that they're in right there. And so that's something that we genuinely have. The same way we want to go and learn text and memorize hadith and memorize Quran, we have to memorize how the Prophet ﷺ spoke to other human beings to give them what they needed in the moment, not what we need, to make us feel better. Like I told them, I was like, only believe in Allah, right? All they think about is like, yeah, but you didn't do anything for the person. But that's something that 2 points that if we just go even below the surface on how we as a community can come together, is we do truly have to get to know each other. We have to be able to recognize differences, and you can't do that if you don't know baseline. That means quality time with each other. That means deep understanding of each other. And that means you even spend enough time to recognize a difference. And then the second is us just even improving and being okay with the fact that you may not have the words. Words don't matter in that moment. What matters is saying, I'm here for you. Whatever you need, let me know. How can we get through this together? What can we do together? That builds something very different.
Love it. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, emotion, question?
I do think there are certain personality types where helping them, others are going through worse or similar situations is kind of a relief and they're not alone. Versus, how can I help you? I know that works on some people, and then versus looking at the bigger picture. I think understanding what type of person you're dealing with also, communication helps as well.
Absolutely, and I think exactly what has mentioned, getting to know that individual. And I think another thing that I wanted to see you push it, further a little bit. Sometimes we have to go on their own pace, right? Sometimes we kind of have some dialogue with parents that will go from 0 to 1,000 the moment, for example, a kid isolates, a kid will have a question or a thought behind it, so they become very reactive to the situation. And sometimes I'm overreacting to the situation and start going and trying to fix it right there and then in the moment. That's a problem. So for us, it's again, taking a step back. I love what you said, just get to know one another. The proper, approach. If a person just needs that extra space, just a hug. So I had a client that I'm working with he has a 16-year-old who's very difficult from dad's perspective. He's going through a lot, getting in trouble, some thoughts, suicide ideation, just very, very tough. So I remember having he's from our community, subhanAllah. So I remember sitting down with him one day and we were having a conversation about solutions in general. That's it, active listening, that was a little deeper. And he stopped me. He said, you know what this kid needs? And I said, what does he need? He said, he needs a hug. For me, as his father. I was like, subhanAllah, that's a solution. Go give him a hug. He said, absolutely not. SubhanAllah, why not? Or, he's like, I'm 50-year-old, my dad never hugged me. SubhanAllah. I know what this kid wants, I will never give it to him because again, so SubhanAllah, we had to shift our approach a little bit to convince his father, SubhanAllah, to stop, let's let this thoughts and old ways of doing things. And I kid you not, maybe a few weeks later, gave him this hug, and all of a sudden both of them are crying during the session, and 180-degree shift. SubhanAllah. Inshallah.
I think also just to close out on that point, part of this is also maybe not just even getting to know the other person, but even getting to know ourselves, right? Like, what are we feeling in that moment? Sometimes taking a pause and actually checking in with ourselves so that we can check our own anxieties, our own biases, our own feelings in that moment, and our own discomforts before we start to now venture into trying to help somebody else. Some of that pause, even of just, checking in on ourselves when we hear, something that may be a little bit shock to our system, or we, figure something out or find something out. Some of that is also our own self-awareness about ourselves, and then try to check in and bring the temperature down within ourselves so that we now can be of service to somebody else in a moment of peace. So that's something that I took from what you were saying, Steph. We can't be so ingrained in our own past that it stops us from being able to give in the moment for somebody else.
Any thoughts? Any questions? Good? Sure. SubhanAllah, I think Brother Ahmad brought up a really good point, and then I want to maybe ask, like for each and every one of you, to ask yourself that question. How well do you know yourself? Like, genuinely know yourself. I think maybe that's a question to take home. Maybe this week, this is maybe something you start to work on, because I think it's very critical to get to know yourself for who you are. And then we can maybe dive a little more deeper into that self-love aspect of it. SubhanAllah, it's one of the exercises that I tend to do, and I ask people all the time, can you describe yourself in 100 positive things? SubhanAllah, it's, when you hear the word 100, sometimes they're motivated. But, again, I think that's maybe a simple exercise for each and every one of us to start to work on, to get to know you for who you are. Because I think once you start to get to know yourself, then you're able to understand the limits, right? And how much you can give, and how much you can take, and how much you're willing to help and not help. So in the sense that it starts with you getting to know yourself a little bit better.
So we'll break for Salah, and then we'll come back after that, inshallah, and continue the conversation.
Yeah, I feel the same. I haven't seen, I literally watched it on purpose, I was like, yeah. So, yeah. Of course, that's. That's what I want to talk about, she's a Yeah, honestly.
And then the circle, graders, things like that. You have this movement, you just there, that movement, that's the more you start to go around it and create views, kind of like. So,
Liaison. Oh, you're right. Good for you. Oh, this one.
No, yeah. I think it's, like, everything like 3 years old.
I think it's like, well, yeah, some people have in place, but I think it's always stronger than I'm not. Exactly, so then I realized, so, yeah, and then, our guys, and it's me, I work with school. Yeah. Well, actually, I was like, was it like 50%? So, yeah, I get back to you. Yeah. My sister is into, she's like, what did I love her? She's like, that means is harder than her, and she's harder than us. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, there's a really I know there's girl has to know. So that's what I'm saying. Yeah, like that's close treating you okay. That's a lot of cares and love, like, it's not so right here. Where it's like diversion. Yeah, like we're the big ocean, but it's strong. It's not like it's really hard to choose everything that's just kind of more expensive. No, it's not. I think it's not. It's not. A lot of people say they're looking at pieces of furniture. But it's nice to hear that maybe because I see other areas where it's still doing better. There's so much diversity here that you will see, like all these different. Yeah. This is like really go under at this time, but it's hard to, I can do a lot of friends and stuff, just really do stand there. That's so, because my sister got her for the past 5 years. She's actually, she's a part of, but right after, so she's just a little stuff here. And she just got married and she hasn't got it. Oh, no. Yeah. But the person can still do it. Yeah, they all just like you guys have some, but it's like they're all right now. Longer in the worship. And I don't understand for some reason. So it's all special. Even if to journeys to glass of water. I really like you follow that. You can see that. Yeah, so pretty much so it's just really there was something wrong with it's just like it's hard to balance like seroculture. Yeah, we weren't here for long because it's like all of this like having like online arts and stuff like that. Like you tell me some course, especially as this is pretty much everything I remember. Yeah. Even if you put just scroll, you know, because I remember and just see like you said, yes, yeah. So my mom had like a lot of or just so yeah. Oh yeah. It's like a like worst times I was not how was it? You know, it's really confusing because like you have to I was born and raised in Toronto and now we're suddenly. And you're sitting there and such a like that. And the poles are like, it's like, I'm getting now the fact that it's talking, we're gonna have kids and science. It's like it's starting to get the message. It's not giving like, it's not, it's also a nice joke sound. It's not like it's like roller skateboards outdoors. And you're saying that if you not like it's just I like some too. And then I wasn't more. So I think I would have tried not stopping playing, stop now. Yeah, it was not causing harm. That's just exactly. My son's that that hurts also. Almost, yeah. Yeah, I think I was getting somewhere. And even like muscles sometimes because they like probably that's somehow. Oh, we just wanted to do like the same possible get read it upstairs. So scared. Yeah, it was here. So cool. I love it here. I love those songs. Let's just go back to our like those 2 weeks ago. There's I gave it this. I'm gonna make some walking for me. What is that cupcake? It always feels like a race. A race. Who can get sorry? Yeah, okay. I'm actually dating tomorrow.
Yeah, I think so. When you guys here,
Oh, you got it.
yeah, thank you for that.
It's just on the that's where it starts
Okay, so I was
It's such a thing. Oh, okay. Nice to meet you.
I'm so excited.
So it's not just it's really so like there's it's just like
Very good at this.
Standing outside. Absolutely. Are you? For you.
Post the link online. Post the link for the live.
Yes. Yeah. I also sent it to you. Oh, they can in the chat. So say something, I'll watch the chat, and then if there's a question or something, I'll bring it up. But make the announcement so people know.
You see people are watching.
Yeah. I don't see it here, but if you see something, a question, it should pop up in the chat here.
I'm saying, I don't know if anybody is watching.
No, it is live right now, and I think we'll also put the link also in the chat. So if someone asks for it, just send it out to them. Yeah.
We can't while we're up here.
If you send it out now before you start, yeah. All right. You good? All right, cool.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, so we are back for the second portion, and I want to see where we should kick off from. Not to summarize everything that we had discussed, but I think some key points that were mentioned in the first portion of this is getting to know ourselves, then getting to know each other better, and then finding ways to increase our emotional vocabulary to be able to deal with the nuances of different situations that we may come across as believers. And at the heart of it is really just us starting to care more deeply beyond our own distractions, beyond our own selves, care deeply about each other, and through that, inshallah, there will be inshallah a flywheel of change. But that was part of the core. Anything that you want to add?
Yes, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, brother Uthman. Bismillah. Super interesting. We just went to pray. As soon as we said salam, the brother who was sitting next to me, he asked, well, is there a conference downstairs? I said, well, we're doing a workshop on suicide. So he looked at me and said, suicide? So kind of like, it's very heavy. I said, yes, it is. And he said, so he paused for a quick second. He's an older man. So he paused for a quick second. And then he said to me, subhanAllah, all we do with our people is to say, you know what, be patient, Allah got it. But he was like, Allah's not going to help you if you don't want to help yourself. SubhanAllah. So I was like, you know what, Jazakallah khair, maybe we'll start that next part.
The person next to me actually said, thank you for having the conversation. So people, alhamdulillah, are recognizing the need. So inshallah, this is the first step in our process to just start to demystify the conversation, but it's only the beginning. It's definitely not the end, and we all need each other's help, inshallah, to continue to perpetuate the conversation, to go deeper and deeper and deeper, and have the right solutions in the mouth, inshallah.
Excuse me for raising my hand at this point, but I missed the complete first sessions. This is my first exposure to this particular program. So pardon me if I'm repeating information that was gotten into before. I don't see anything on this sheet about the clinical medical issues in back of suicide, clinical depression, bipolar illness, what is now being called neurodiversity or neurodivergence, where disorders of the human nervous system, the chemistry and the physical structure, which we're becoming more aware of at all times, have nothing to do with your character, your intelligence, anything like that. Those emotional, psychological factors do not drive that despair and drive that suicide, but rather they are often caused by it. I lost my two best friends in my adult life and several members of my own family to suicidal depression. It is to be taken very seriously, and it can be treated very seriously. There are good interventions available now very relatively easily, and they've saved lives in my family too. And I just hope they might save some lives in this room. Thank you.
Thank you so much for bringing that up and also sharing the impact of that on your own personal life. Last week, we did go into a greater detail, let's say, but still nothing to the depth that is needed to address the multifaceted challenges that each of us as individuals and as a society are facing, and as a world, let's say, we're facing with everything that is happening around us and to us and within us and through what we eat and through what we see and through what we do. And so you're absolutely right. It is multifaceted and is not a indictment on character or religion or faith or iman or how good of a person I am or how good of a Muslim I am or how good of a Christian I am. So thank you for calling that.
Yeah, if you're persistently depressed and you're willing to die, or you think about it, go ahead, get an evaluation, and if you go into protracted treatment, optimally from somebody who is him or herself in recovery, in successful recovery from what it is that you're going to be looking at.
I love that, and thank you for that. I think this is a very critical point that I think we should maybe each write on a piece of paper. I think acknowledgement, I think this is one of the biggest things, because I think a lot of times we dismiss that, the fact that there's something wrong in a sense, right? You know, I think, and maybe let's take it even back a little bit, right? It's not with the anxiety, or just even stress in general. Like if you stress out about life, the economy, what's going on around you, family stressors, life, financials, whatever that is. If you don't acknowledge, you stop to pause and treat it, and then we say, you know, stress untreated can lead into anxiety, and then anxiety untreated it can lead into depression, and then depression untreated can lead into a little bit more severe issues that we tend to see. So SubhanAllah, recognize it early. And I think this is very important. And once you know, again, and you don't know what it is, ask for help, because I think this is part of the stigma that we have within our own communities. You know, but we don't seek help. There's a thing, you know, what the brother just mentioned a few minutes ago. He said, you know what, you know, just be patient. SubhanAllah, we tend to forget that patience or sabr, SubhanAllah, is active, is not passive. He's doing something. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us to, again, once you recognize, yes, we're patient, but being patient or having sabr is also seeking for help. Reach out to an individual, get an evaluation, see a therapist, change your lifestyle, as Brother Uthman had mentioned. I think that goes back into the question we asked before we took a break. It's like, do you genuinely know yourself? I shared an example with one of the brothers here. I got a call today around 10:45. One of my clients who was ready to take you know, an interview for, you know, she's been preparing for such an interview. She is clinically depressed, and that's something that she's going through. 10:45, she called and said, you know, my interview is at 11 o'clock. I don't want to do it. I don't think I can do it. I don't see the light. Her exact words, I don't see the light at the end of this tunnel. I don't know what to do. So, few examples, I said, you know what, take a deep breath. Well, I am taking a deep breath. I was like, well, make some momentum, wash your face. I can't do that, I'm outside. So I said to her, I was like, you know what, just pause for a second, take your shoes off. And she did. I was like, find some grass, stand on top of that grass. You know, close your eyes and hold your heart, and hear your heartbeat and breathe for a few minutes. And so kind of she did that, you know, for a few minutes, you know, felt like better, went for that exam and took it. The brother asked me, why that specifically? I mean, let's go back into changing the state, SubhanAllah. I think this is another thing that's very, very critical, changing your lifestyle, right? So if you feel like, you know, you're sleeping 12, 13, 14 hours a day, we need to change that, right? If you're eating unhealthy food and things like that, you have a very unhealthy diet, we need to change that. The people you surround yourself with, if they're very down on you and hard on you, and all they talk about is negativity, we need to change that. If you're not drinking enough water, you know, enough, you know, like to get into be hydrated, we need to change that, right? If you don't believe in therapy in a sense and you feel depressed, we need to change that. Changing the state is very critical as far as the first step into treatment. So I think this is an important point about getting to know you for who you are. And at some point, start to again dive into more deep and seeking help. I think the brother mentioned it. I mean, there's no shame I'm picking up the phone call and be.
So let me ask you this, maybe just as a practical means. How do I seek help? Like, how do I take that step? Whether it's for me personally or even for someone who I love. What would you recommend is the best approach that I can take to break the barrier of this, just, let's say, generational fear that has been built inside of me to say, if I seek help, I'm weak. If I seek help, it becomes real. If I seek help, then that person's gonna judge me. How do I seek help?
I think the first step to that is to understand the people around you, right? And I think connecting and building a relationship with individuals that believe in that. So for example, we're here, right? And then we see people around you that I think we all share the same, we're interested in the same topic, for example. So if you feel a certain way, reaching out to that individual and that individual can say, you know what, this maybe call 911 in a sense, or 888, I mean, part of that, some of the resources that we have. I think having resources accessible, that's number one. But I think the biggest thing is, again, identify the people around you. Because if you, for example, your parents who are extremely against mental health, they don't believe in it, they don't believe in therapy and things like that. If you go to them and say, you know what, I need help, the first thing might come out of them is just break up as and be patient, subhanAllah, and that's not help, right? So recognizing your support system. I talked to Brother Rahman yesterday. Part of the system that we have within my close family, my friends, my clients, and people that we know each other, we have something called the double call policy. So if you call me and I don't answer, hang up and call again. For us, that's an emergency. We drop whatever that is that we're doing, and we pick up the phone call and say what's going on. So creating a safe word within your own people around you that you would trust, or maybe have that simple double call for you to recognize that, you know what, I can pick up the phone at any given point, and I can reach out to the people that I trust within my circle, and they'll drop whatever that is, and they'll answer that call. So just simple systems, but I think the first thing start with getting to know the people around you, the people that you can trust genuinely. And if you don't know anyone, subhanAllah, that you can trust, take our contact information. It's that simple. You know someone, if you're going through something, call this person. And I promise you, if I get a double call from any number, I'll pick it up, because for me, my brain is programmed into that sense that someone in need, and reaching out to me twice, I need to drop whatever that is, and the first thing I can say is, how can I help? And it's that simple. Hopefully that answers that.
Jazakallah khair. And I want to ask you another question, and this came up last week again. Maybe this was the second point that I was trying to remember. But there seemed to be a sentiment in the room that people felt safer opening up to strangers than they did the people they know. Right? That was the conclusion we all kind of came up with, and that also worried me as well, because one, if the person that you feel most comfortable opening up to is a person that knows nothing about you and is probably not going to be in your life in the moments that you need them, but that's the person that you feel most comfortable exposing yourself to, because you're like, it's low risk. Like, I'm never going to see this person ever again, So I can see the therapeutic element of that, of just like, oh, I can just pour myself out to this person. It's like, it's not going to do anything to my life. It's not going to blow anything up. I'm not going to have this judgment. I'm not going to, worry about how this person sees me. It's like, no, I'm never going to see them again, right? So there was a strong sense in the room from us that came. So the question maybe for you is like, how do we get to a point even to ask for help, if we don't even feel comfortable enough opening up to the people closest to us with the depth of maybe some of the ideas, thoughts, plans, things that are happening, maybe emotions that are taking place, and we would feel more comfortable just even opening up to a stranger. How do I bridge that gap?
SubhanAllah, before we even go further in this, on my way here, literally on my way here.
This guy's full of stories.
Again, we have paid attention to the stories. I get a double call from a brother of one of my clients. I know the family, they know me, and he said, I'm going through something right now, I need help. So I called him and I said, hey, what can I do? And his exact words were, well, can you give me someone else's number? Because I want to get it. Allah, it's the same exact thing. Can I get Imam Kiba with someone else's number? Because I want to share whatever that is I'm going through with someone that don't know me. Allah, subhanAllah, I share the text. So I said, no problem, here's Imam Kibir's phone number, call him. Then he reached back to me a few seconds later and he said, well, I don't want to bother him. Is it okay for us to meet? Can we meet at Sully today? And I was like, well, we have this workshop tonight, maybe after Isha, so inshallah I'll meet with him tonight after Isha. So subhanAllah, this is the reality of things. And I think we need to take it even further and ask ourselves, why, right? Is it the stigma? Is it for us not to be judged in a sense? Is it for us to look at, again, people pointing fingers? Is it the gossip aspect that we talked about earlier? Why? We don't feel, again, comfortable enough to ask the people that around us. Is it we need to maybe have new people, better people around us that we can trust? Is it the trust aspect? Which is a lot of different questions that I think each and every one of us must ask yourself. If I have, but I think Brother Ahmed brought a really good point earlier. You have 40 people when you're no longer with us, that can come to you and pray, like in the janazah, righteous people. If the answer is no, so maybe that's when we start to devote ourselves to actually start to have better friends, get to know better people that you can trust in a sense, people that have the same exact thoughts and beliefs. Because that's another problem. If we feel that we don't have the people around us, it's okay for us to reach out for help. And I think it starts with something like this, starting the dialogue, starting the conversation, subhanAllah. And what the exercise that we did earlier, shake someone else's hand, hug them, let them know who you are, and maybe by the end of the day today, exchange phone numbers. And maybe again, come up with a plan. If I do reach out to you, if I do have that double call, can just answer and just say, you know what, I'm here for you. That's the basic. And then maybe evaluate the people around you, subhanAllah. If you don't have that proper people, let's get involved in, come to the message more often. People, just again, start to navigate and understand the people. Who do you surround yourself with? Do you surround yourself with people who are positive, encouraging, helpful, that you can you can depend on them? Or do you surround yourself with people who put you down constantly? And that goes back into self-awareness and understanding who you are and the people you surround yourself with.
So that you bring up so many layered points, just in even the example that you gave, that the first instinct was like, give me somebody else's number because we know each other too well. Like let me at least put one, degree of separation between, and then that person actually started to worry about burdening the person you did give him. So now the question that floods into my mind, and this goes into us needing to do these exercises within ourselves first, why do we feel this sense of burden or fear that we are going to bother somebody else with my problems? Because this was something that came up, and I even mentioned on my own self, for my personal self, sometimes I hold back and I withhold from certain people because I'm I don't want to bother them. But really, that's not a reflection on the person. What it's reflecting is my own self, my own insecurity. Why do I feel like I'm not worthy enough to put this, whatever it is, my pain, my thoughts, my feelings, on that person? So I don't know if you've come across what are some depths? Can just give me a little bit of depth there for me to understand.
I think as human, I think it's easier for us to help solve other people's problems because we want to avoid our own problems. And subhanAllah, if you ask around and you start to dive into getting to know you, who you are, you start to find yourself getting calls from so many people around you, and you are willing to go that extra mile and help and support. But it's very difficult for us to pick up the phone and reach out to someone. And subhanAllah, it's a practice. I myself, I think that's something I struggled with early on, my career. I would never ask people for help and then subhanAllah, just that burden. But once I learned to, and I think it was my mentor who said that to me, he said, always teach someone to take your spot in order for you to move forward in life. And that was a very heavy message that I learned that, what, sometimes I need to let go and trust the people around my team, the people again. So subhanAllah, once you start to do that simple practice, you start to see, what, I have extra time to do other things. So subhanAllah now, and again, I'll pick up the phone and reach out to anyone and I say, hey, this is what I need, can you help? And subhanAllah, take some of that burden out of me and strengthen that relationship that they feel that, what, you reached out to me for help. Now I'm able to do the same thing to him or to someone else. just taking the initiative. I think that's maybe the first step. But I think initially, each and every one of us were programmed in a way where we're helpful. We want to help people. We want to take some of that pain away from someone else to comfort other people. And it's very hard for us to do the same thing. And it goes back into getting to know ourselves and strength. And I think the word that you used, worthy. Do I deserve to reach out to someone? It's okay for me to let my insecurities behind. It's okay for me to extend. And sometimes kind of people are ready to help. If you just ask, because if you spend your entire life helping other people, and giving, sometimes they want you to reach out because they want to help. But if you don't give people a chance to help you, then it's on you, not on them somehow.
I gave this story last week, this experience, and it really speaks to exactly what you're saying, where I had a random message come to me on LinkedIn. Somebody I've never met before. We've exchanged maybe messages in the past. And he basically sent a message saying, hey, do you know any good marriage counselors? I'm like, yes, I do, but like, can you give me some more details? Like, where are you at? How can I recommend the right thing if I don't know any information? And so he's like, yeah, I live in Amsterdam. And I'm like, okay, what is going on here? I was like, okay, and I can feel, in some of the stuff that he was messaging, it's like, man, this person is looking for somebody to talk to. So I was like, hey, I'm free. Would you like to just jump on a call? He's like, yes, absolutely. I'm like, I've never met this person before. Our lives have never crossed paths. But he's like, let's just get on a call right now. And he starts to just pour his life out to me. We've been married for just 3 months. And, they're going through something. And so just me being, again, and I'm going back to this point of like, it's easier for us to reach out to strangers than it is probably 100 people that he knows just in his own vicinity. But it's like this random guy sitting in Virginia, why not? Let me just have a conversation. And subhanAllah, I felt like, to the point you just said, I actually felt honored that he would reach out to. I felt honored not just from him, like I felt honored from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to say, how can I now be part of this person's story? And I don't know anything about them. Like I've never interacted with them. It was so deeply intent, like there was a, you know how to say, it's not the soulmates piece, but the souls connected in that moment. And I felt the opportunity from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to just be on the other side of the line, right? And that was sufficient. So he didn't burden me with that. I actually felt like, man, this is amazing. And for him, he reached out later, a few days later, and he said, hey, things are much better now. So just being part, so I'm, I want to ask the crowd here this question, like, is this truly something that you feel is connected to this fear of asking for help, or this hesitation before we do reach out and seek somebody's help? Do you think it's connected to your own worth, like fear that you're just not worthy of another person helping you out? Or is it more related to the fear of how these people are going to judge me, what they're going to think about me after I reveal these things to them, because it seems crazy to me, so how would it seem to them? What's the feeling in the room?
I'd like to say something.
But before, I want to just get an answer to this question, and then I'll come back to you, inshallah.
There is the outside and the inside.
Okay.
And there's a fight going on. This person is fighting what is the inner belief and inner version of themselves, and what the outside is presenting, and the view of that person of the outside.
Okay.
So there is this conflict going on, and that person finally jumps over it or is a prisoner of it.
So meaning they're a prisoner of trying to maintain what they believe is the outside perception of themselves and hide what the internal truly is. So if they actually let the internal go external, now they've broken down this image or this perception that they have. Okay, so that's one thought. What else?
I'm gonna piggyback on what she just said. I agree with it 100%. But just to add to it, a lot of people have a lot of self-awareness. They have reached a high level of self-awareness, and it could be from something they have been through or just knowledge in general. And because of that, they think with emotional intelligence, when you have a high self-awareness, you have high emotional intelligence in some cases. And with that being said, burdening other people doesn't fall within the emotional intelligence part. They think that they can fix things on their own because they have high self-awareness, which puts you in the place, kind of like going back to what you said, because it's kind of, you're also fighting what's inside. And you don't really know, am I going to, if I explain this to somebody else, will they have the same self-awareness that I have to understand what I'm going through? It's, sometimes it's more like you want the person to understand you, and not about like judgment, but also to be on the same level, because explaining yourself too much can, I guess my point.
Yeah, so I see what you're, so if I summarize that, you're saying, because we live in an age, and again, I really, I don't know if I fully believe that we're all more self-aware now or less self-aware, but like, let's say the person going through whatever it is that they're going through, because they may be so self-aware of their own problems, if they now expose that to somebody else, there's a calculation that's happening on, will this person even understand and be at the level of self-awareness that I have to even help me? Like, is it even worth me going beyond myself, or can I just figure it out on my own because of how self-aware I am? Is that what you were saying?
Yes, and there's a conclusion to it, because you can speak so much about what truly matters to you, and if you don't get the same, I guess, if you don't get the reciprocation that you're expecting, even though you have the self-awareness to understand that not everybody's going to understand you, you still want them to understand you. If you don't get that, that could actually cause a negative effect.
Okay, so there's a protectionist element to it. Okay?
Yeah, going off of that, it could also come to hyper-independence. So maybe you've tried getting support in the past and you haven't quite gotten the way that you expected, or didn't turn out the way that it should have been, then you kind of just get into that mentality of, I'll do it on my own, I'll figure it out on my own. So that could also be an issue.
Anything else? Any other kind of thoughts on like why we go through this tension?
I was just thinking that sometimes we're just afraid that it's going to change the way people think about us. You know, I feel like everyone has like this image that they present to the world, and when you're vulnerable about anything, I think you know that it's going to change their perception of you.
So, and then what happens then? If their perception of you changes, what does that do to you?
I don't know, sometimes I guess it feels like it's the end of the world, but then it's like this person knows you better. I think something that really helps me before I'm about to reach out to anyone for support, I'm like, if this person were to reach out to me, how would I feel receiving that? And I think to myself, okay, I'd be really happy to support them and help them. And I'm like, a friendship is a two-way street. It's not just going to be me helping them or them helping me. We have to be able to help each other. So I always reframe it that way. I'm like, okay, if my friend was asked in the same situation, I want them to reach out to me. So then I think, okay, I'm going to reach out to them.
Yeah. But I do love the part, like you guys are touching on the same nerve, which I think is definitely a big challenge that we have, which is I don't want to ruin the perception people have of me. But the challenge is like, do you even know the perception they have, right? Like, and what would happen if their perception is altered to a more real perception of the reality that is happening inside of you? And it leads to some sort of help or, conclusion to whatever it is happening in the moment. So that's just a question I want us to think about. You had your hand up as well.
Yeah, I think just kind of like building off of like what everybody said, I think at the root of it, like there's a lot of shame. I think that we like feel of just being vulnerable. And I guess part of the perception is like having to admit that you can't handle everything on your own, or that you're dealing with something very heavy. I think we can kind of like throw a lot of like negative stuff at ourselves and just feel really ashamed that, or that like we feel like we can't be as strong as we think other people are, where you don't really know what's going on inside them either.
Because everybody's guarding
Yeah.
this external image that we think we all got it together, but we're a bunch of messed up people. Let's just say that out loud, right? Like, we're all messed up. You know, the sister last week, was mentioning, and this was, wish you were there to answer her question far better than I did, but she said, how do we deal, she's from China, from the Uyghurs. She's like, people are taking their own lives because there is no other option for them. They're being tortured to a degree that it's inconceivable to even live to the next day. And so it's actually better to not. And so she's like, how do I deal with that? Like, how do I now put that into, so to think that we're guarding this external image that we all have it put together and that the world circumstances around us, or even the certain normal circumstances of this life that we're living that is like, first world problems, is still problems that we're going through. It's still messy inside. It still creates issues. But this shame that we carry that is preserving an image that actually doesn't exist anywhere is making us go into a deeper and deeper cycle of pressure and burden. And, so I just like, I'm glad we're all tapping around the same issues. So it's like, it's good and you had your hand up.
So I think part of it also is a lot of people don't want to reach out because they don't want to be judged. And also, when you've been going through it for such a long amount of time, you're beaten, you're battered down, you're broken internally, finally got the courage to reach out. I'm gonna use my brother Kabir for an example. It's like, hey, brother Kabir, I'm not feeling so good, man. I'm not doing so good. And then he dismisses it. Then that leaves you shattered. That's something that a lot of people don't really want to admit that they don't want to be judged by the people that mean a lot to them.
Yeah.
So that's another thing where they say you want to maintain that outside perception.
So I heard somebody on this, but in my sort of
We can't hear you.
oh, sorry. Forgive me if anybody has already touched on this, but I'm thinking about like how ego and insecurity or shame are oftentimes just two sides of the same coin. And I say this also like, I'm not just saying this from the opposite, like I also experience this. But sometimes I think what makes it difficult also to reach out is, especially when you are pretty self-aware, you're like, I'm so self-aware, no one's gonna get it.
Yeah, that's what she was trying to say.
Yeah, that's what you said, yeah. But in a way that like,
That's ego right there.
yeah, like when we're talking about like maintaining an image that we think nobody else, like, that we don't even know if other people have that image of us. Sometimes there is a bit of pride that comes with that too, like, I don't wanna be so vulnerable that somebody sees a weakness and then they exploit it, or they think less of me when they probably already have like a high regard or whatever. And I think like in this way, we're not only clearing ourselves off from like connecting to people, but also from like allowing ourselves to be people. Like shame can be a point of connecting to Allah if you're able to give up your ego and submit to Him. But and sometimes being able to like, hear difficult things from someone that you trust, which is different from like some random person that just says whatever because they don't really know what's going on. But so sometimes not want to open up because you don't want to be told something that deep down is probably something you need to hear. It's like it's something that I think like has stopped me sometimes from reaching out. But also like so it's important to like be aware of like when am I not ready for something and I know that and I'm doing my best to approach it versus what is like my spiritual blind spot? Like what have I been preventing myself from reckoning with? And by reaching out to somebody, will they give me the right amount of like grace and mercy and truth that I need to like
Well, thank you for that. I think you summarized well what you were trying to say.
No, I was just gonna say, I think at the end of the day, like, no one's gonna know you in your life more than yourself. And people who are capable of compassion or like are like deep thinkers, right? You're introspective, you think a lot, like, you're intelligent at the end of the day. So going to different people for their opinion, and sometimes simple-minded advice just really hits. Like, you'll see a quote where it's like, live, laugh, love, you're like, you know what? I needed that, but it's like basic. But you just never know where, like, Allah's, like, through which person, like, Allah's mercy, yeah. And then you just have to use discernment, like use the Quran to like, okay, I'm getting all these different advices, right? I know my memories, my life, my traumas, and then apply, what advice makes best sense. Instead of being scared, like, are they the right person to, like, do they know me? Probably not, only God knows you.
Yeah, I think that there's a point here that it feels like a lot of you are tapping into, which is also our fragility and kind of learning how to become a bit more anti-fragile, right? This is like a new concept now. We have become so self-aware that it's like, now I want the feedback and the advice and the help to come in the exact way that I expect for it to come. And if it doesn't, it does fall on the other person. And what I would say is, like, honestly, because this is so messy in and of itself, like, part of the challenge that we do have in talking about suicide is that the right words don't exist right now. And so fumbling through it together, as long as there's a shared understanding that we're trying to work towards something that is better than where we're at, is part of the commitment, the social commitment we have to make to each other, right? To sit there and say, like, yes, if Brother Kabir didn't give you what you needed in that moment, actually expressing that back to him and saying, like, hey, bro, like, that actually really didn't help me. And that was, like, really messed up. That, like, made me feel even worse. Like, then the brother would be like, dude, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't know, like, what other words could I have used? What other way could I have presented that would have made you feel better? Sometimes, like, we just don't, even in our own relationship, let's say even in marriage, we don't even know the spouse you've been next to for the last 15, 20 years still may be saying things in ways that don't land with you. But it's not on them to read your mind to understand what would have been a better way to say something. We also have to get to a point where we can express that back. Now, there is a line here between, like, what the brother was mentioning. There's a line between clinically being unable to rationally articulate and communicate and express and understand what is going on, because our brain just is not in a position to function clearly like that. And now that the onus does fall on the people who are around you that understand that and can be able to approach it from different angles. But at the same time, the onus does fall back on us as the caregivers, as the community of caring people, to say, okay, what are the avenues where we can push in certain directions to figure out what does land, what doesn't land, how to communicate that, how to change that, how to tell you back, hey, this is actually what I really need in this moment. I just need you to say nothing, but sit next to me. That's it.
I think she has a comment. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that sometimes, like, not to put the emotional burden on someone else, or it's like to put like an extra task on another person who's already struggling, but sometimes if I see someone struggling, I try to remember, like, to ask, like, okay, how do you need me to show up for you right now?
Exactly.
Because, like, every single person needs something differently. Some people, they like sometimes I just need someone's presence. I don't want to talk about it. I just want you to just be next to me, and I just want to feel comfort in your presence next to me. Other times, like, I might just, like, want to vent, and then, but, like, most times, like, if I'm talking about it, I want a solution, because I want my way out of it. And so, even then, let's say someone is also a solution-oriented person, if I'm someone who has never experienced that, I will do my best to point them, to connect them with someone who has experienced that situation, because that person at least has some percentage of success in dealing with that sort of situation, because, like, I know that their approach has worked at least once. Or that their approach has worked at least once for this type of situation. And so, they have better luck than I do as someone who has no experience in that situation. And so, like, it's also like kind of like a delicate act to like make sure that that person knows, like, I'm not trying to shrug you off to another person, it's just, I wanna make sure that I'm not giving you bad advice, and I just might be like speaking out of my foot, but like, cause I don't know, you know, but I'm here for you because I love you and I wanna be around you, and I wanna support you.
And I think just reinforcing that aspect, right? Because the language of love is universal, especially in moments when we don't know what to say and we don't know how to put the right words or the right actions behind it. Just expressing that is something, again, that's very difficult. Like, dude, just give him a hug. That's it. Like, everything could change if his father hugs him. And it's like, well, I don't even know how to give a hug because I never received that. Now you're talking about, so this is where generational trauma starts to introduce itself, and constantly we live with it every single day, especially as an immigrant community. We have generations and generations of trauma that exists, but like what doesn't need is just the language of love. Love can permeate through all of these things. And so how we get better at just even us individually, what are the steps we can take to improve our ability to express love actually is one of the most powerful changes that we can make as a community.
Also, don't assume the ways in which you should show up for a person. Like, so if I'm someone, if I'm like upset and it's offloading or something, I feel like it's permitted, like with whoever I'm like, you know, I don't want to be touched. I want to just like, I want to just feel what I'm feeling without the physical, because like you feel emotions physically as well. And so I don't want the physical disruption, or I don't want disruption of having physical touch. Because it like it messes up my emotional process. And so like someone will be crying in front of me, and I'll be like sitting there like nodding, understanding, and like really trying to be understanding, like, you know, what can I do for you right now? Like, I don't know, give me a hug, and I forget that this is what other people also like want, you know. And so something that is unnatural to me is more natural to someone else. And so it's just
So, but that goes back to us learning about ourselves. Right?
Yeah.
If we don't know what helps us in the moment, we also can't help teach the people we do care about and that we do want to be cared from to help us in those moments. So the less we know about ourselves, again, it puts actually everybody who is close to us and in our circle that may be there to say, I am willing to help. It puts them at a disservice. And so that's the process that each of us individually have to go through so that now we become self-aware enough to be prepared in moments for other people to say, what do you need in this moment? Because it may not be what I need. So let me like show up in the way that you want me to show up.
I don't want to. I know you guys have to go to the next topics and stuff.
It's you guys have a lot of, like, it's good to hear this, and we do have to get back to this brother too. But
He can go before me. Because he's been waiting longer.
but is yours connected to what we're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so just finish that. And then we'll jump.
I think we talked about people's fear of being judged. Sometimes it stems from their ego or insecurity, or sometimes it's a matter of both, or them being even the same thing. How people cope in different ways, or people might respond to different things. I think it might just be a general basic response, but I think sometimes it's just the fact that it's new, the fact that it's unknown, it's something never done before. And so when they're sitting by themselves, whether it's late at night or it's in the middle of the day, and their thoughts are swirling, and majority of the time they're overthinking, every possible thing that could happen, that could be bad, is almost like a guarantee for them in their head.
Say that one more time.
Every possible negative outcome or variable that could happen that could lead to something they're not ready for is almost a guarantee. Yeah.
Can I share a thought with you? I think brother, we're gonna get into. This is something that's very interesting. I never make decisions at night. Never. Ever. Like these major decisions, never at night. Why? Because I just wanted to think about our day, right? You know, you wake up 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. You know, dealing with kids, family, home, you go to work, dealing with bosses and clients and, you know, customers all day long. And you come home and you're exhausted, you're tired, frustrated, and then all of a sudden you have to make a major decision. What do you think is going on in your mind, in your brain in that moment? Heavy. Versus wake up for Fajr, take a shower, pray, fresh. Now it took you time to process, then make a decision. So how it's a rule in our own household, we never make decisions at night. My kids will come to me like, oh, I can't make decisions at night. I know, okay, we'll come tomorrow morning. And so how about just giving ourselves that break for the next day, as far as the process, to think of things from a different perspective, after we're calm. So how about a lot of times we make better decisions versus decisions that will make the night before. Just that it's a simple exercise, and I think it's about changing, right? Some of the things that you're doing throughout the day that will work for you as an individual. So I think that's something that I just wanted to share with you.
After listening to everybody here, many people do not open to their inner circle of family because they do not trust. And they are again afraid of being judged, like their perspective and all those things, all our sisters spoke here. That is one part. The second part, the new generation now is the Insta generation. They have a problem and they want a message, a solution within this 30 seconds or 60 words, whatever is the limit. So that is the thing which is more on them. There have been studies where in an institution like a corporate college, corporate office, or a institution like a college, there are in-house counselors available to students or the employees to go and rent out. They hardly get any people to come and speak to them. In the same institution, a third party was arranged, which is not connected to the institution, which works on confidentiality. There were lines of 50 people standing to rent out rather than to the in-house counselors. So there is a stigma, I can't use that word stigma, but there is a feeling among everybody that we cannot open up with people whom we know or whom we see.
Thank you for sharing that, and I agree with you 1,000,000%. When I work with younger clients, let's say teens or preteens, subhanAllah, one of the things that I tell the parents all the time, I will say to your kid the same thing that you're saying, but they'll probably more likely to accept it from me as a stranger versus you as a parent. And subhanAllah, 99% of parents agree. So I'll go in and say, well, I need you to go to bed at 9. And the kids will go to bed at 9, and the parents will say to me, well, I've been saying this for the past 10 years, and this kid doesn't want to go to bed at this second. So I agree with you 100,000,000%. One resource that we have here at this masjid, we do have a wellness center. And so subhanAllah, I work with Sister inshallah, she'll be here next week, and part of next week's workshop specifically is resources. Have an individual within the community that we can pick up the phone call and reach out to them, we'll call them, we'll just come into the masjid. And even if you cannot afford it, and this is something that I want to make sure that we highlight a little bit. Some of the stigma is mental health is too expensive, to pay a therapist, so it's $150, $200, whatever that is, and some might not have insurance and I cannot afford it. Something that I genuinely appreciate here at this masjid that part of the wellness program, if you cannot afford it, they will pay for it. So just to put that into perspective, if you cannot afford it, you let them know I cannot afford it, they will pay for it. So help is available, for us. We just need to knock on such doors. So this is just maybe a simple thing, and inshallah next week we'll dive a little more into it, more in depth as far as resources, and I think we'll have Kibra there next week, and Sister Sil from Moments, inshallah, she'll be there, inshallah I'll be there too as well. So these are just some things for us to think about. But one thing that I encourage each and every one of you to do this week, and this is maybe your homework for this week, to think about what we talked about, to think about self-love and self-awareness. And dive a little more deeper into that and try to understand who you are and what do you deserve. Because I think one of the questions that I want to ask, again, people's perspective, right? So if you surround yourself with individuals that you do not trust, and then their perspective of you will change if you are vulnerable with them, you want to surround yourself with such individuals, or maybe this is the time for you to take a step back to identify other people who are more accepting of you for who you are. So again, this is just something for us to think about, and these are just provoking some thoughts of subhanAllah. I think it's worth checking.
I really second what you just said, brother, because I think in any therapeutic relationship, without exception, one thing you need is respect. Respect, mutual respect, and mutual acceptance, and preferably if you can find a partner who is also going through the same thing and is in a successful state of recovery. But always insist on respect and exercise your personal agency when you're selecting somebody like that. Absolutely.
Yes, brother.
So, brother, actually, like practicing Islam is like too authentic that like makes somebody to be like go to that kind of societal kind of thing. Because in a partners, actually, like husband and wife, like wife is doing too much of authentic, like kind of very orthodox in Islam, practicing too many rules and regulations, where the husband kind of like make this kind of a step. Is that do we have to be like a little bit moderate in the family, like isn't it like counseling? Because I have seen one of the incident in my life where the partner was like too authentic, too much of practicing, and made this brother.
I mean, I think each family dynamics is different. One thing that I shared when we started today's program, that one of my aunts actually, killed herself at a very a younger age. My grandfather was an imam. SubhanAllah, he was an imam at the big mosque in Turman in Sudan. So it's not the lack of religion, it's not the lack of discipline, it's not the lack of understanding the faith aspect of it, but there's mental health truly exists, subhanAllah. And it's not left or right. It can happen to anyone. So it doesn't matter if you're extreme orthodox or you're not, or connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala person. I mean, mental health is a real thing. And I think one of the examples that I wanted to maybe pick on for a little bit, subhanAllah, sometimes we feel, we question, right? Why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala making us, make me lose a friend, or why am I going through this, and question such faith in a sense. But I think one of the simplest examples for us to think about, you look into who is the most beloved individual to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's think about our prophets. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he lost every single child except for Fatima during his life. So think about grief in a sense, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala love our prophet, right? But then again, he was tested by such things. So we cannot go back and it's easy to point a finger at the religion or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this or that. Because subhanAllah, these are some of the times, it's our test. This is what we have to go through. We have to again know ourselves. I think understanding being from a perspective that mental health is a real thing. And us dealing with mental health, I think it's part of, it's I don't want to say expected, but that's something that we should look into. I mean, I think we talked about sabr earlier, being patient, but patient is movement, it's doing things. Be patient is to seek help. That's part of the deen, right? To reach out to a therapist or a counselor, to express, to talk, to share, to change your lifestyle. These are things that we are expected. The comment that the brother had mentioned to me, it's not about just, okay, well, just be patient. Allah got it. Yes, Allah got it, but we have to be proactive, take steps towards that. And we cannot point the fingers, because this is something, again, going back into the stigma. It's, hey, she's too strict, religiously, but he's not, and then that led him to it. Absolutely not, nothing to do with it. It's mental health. There's some issues in there that needs to be addressed. It's underlying, that was not touched, was not dealt with, subhanAllah. And then now we're in this situation. So I think self-awareness is very critical for us to understand that it's I think the sister has her hand. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
You can.
Yeah, so sometimes it's like, I think taking a step back to recognize and find the core issue as far as what it is that's causing this pain, right? Not necessarily, well, this person's view of things and that's what led this problem. Nobody lead anyone to anything. I think it's, again, going through whatever that is that you're going, how you internalize, your mental health, your aspect, and how you deal with things, that will make a difference somehow.
And I do think it's never going to be one thing that leads a person to make that final decision. It's always going to be a confluence of issues, right? It's going to include sociological, there is going to be biological, there's going to be psychological, there's going to be spiritual, right? There's going to be physical. So like understanding that it's not one thing. From the outside, it always may look so easy. It's like, that's what it was. He should have never made that decision, or she should have never met that person, and that's what. But it's never that simple, right?
Yeah, especially like the one I'm talking about actually was sick for like almost 3 to 4 months, and he has actually listed all the people, like religiously, like conservative, but on, it was too late.
Sister, right, and then, go ahead. Shoot.
This is, I guess, just one way that helps me navigate the tensions between like, oh, like what does Islam say? Like, how should we be behaving? Should we not be having dua for people? Like, and I'm not somebody that's a scholar, so I, take this with a grain of salt, but something that at least helps me kind of reconcile my being and where I'm at in life now as opposed to where I was a couple years ago, or as opposed to stories of other people I know that had similar issues. I think what helps me understand this is like there's Allah's infinite wisdom and infinite knowledge, and there's a verse in Surah Al-Kahf that is about if Allah's words if Allah's words were written with like the ink of an ocean, it would still not be enough, even if you had another ocean. And so when I think about religion and like our understanding of it, I also think about the fact that it's actually information that is very specifically chosen out of Allah's infinite wisdom to tell mankind how to behave. And so when we're trying to answer these really big questions about like, where's this person gonna end up and things like that, I think sometimes we try to do Allah's job. Like we try to do his job and try to figure out how to categorize things so we know what to believe. But the religion is not, it doesn't always have all the answers right there. I mean, we're supposed to go through life looking for those answers and also understand like how we might individually see a topic. Like if for example, like you're having mental health struggles and the only thing that's stopping you is Allah doesn't want me to take this final step, right? That should not be negated. And that should not be invalidated from, oh, this concept is, discouraged in the religion. Because that can be somebody's like final. And that if that's the truth, that's the truth. At the same time, there's an aspect of religion that has to do with communal obligations. And so like, even if for yourself, you're that's your final line, like, I can't give any more of my spirituality to Allah, but this is the bare minimum, then that's an act of worship, and I'll accept that. But then towards someone else who might be experiencing that, if you just tell them something, like, you don't know the kind of impact it will have on them, and so you need to have humility in that moment and compassion. So what I think about in terms of like religion and religious rulings is these are guidelines for us for how to behave as a society and as individuals, but ultimately the infinite wisdom and the fate of people is known by Allah only. And so it helps me to think about like we don't need to have all the answers figured out about what's allowed, what's not allowed, like in actual conceptualness, but rather that in our limited knowledge, there's certain things we know that we know there's certain ways to behave, and then not acting in those, if that leads to stigma that can cause further harm, then like that is going against what Islam is meant to stand for. And so we have to act within that limited confines while understanding that our confines are limited. That revelation to an extent is limited to what Allah knows we need to know.
One thing I wanted to say is just give this advice to all of us to hear. Please, 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 let's build our family relationship. Because yes, you can talk to somebody outside, but you don't know who that person is, and you don't know where that information can reach. Build our family relationship. No family is perfect. And there is things that in your family you don't accept, you hate, but you accept that in another family. You're going to go to your friend or some other people, maybe there are things worse over there than things that you hate in your family, but you accept it. How did you accept it? You have to make something, you have to make some type of effort or something in order to accept it and be with them without any problem. If you make that same effort or maybe even less than that with your family, it's going to work. Nobody is perfect. And sometimes know that we living what's gonna happen tomorrow on the ground, and that's applies to all of us. We healthy today, what's gonna happen tomorrow, we don't know. And there is certain things that will happen in our life, and before you see anybody outside, it's your family who's gonna be there. And they're the one who's gonna deal with everything, the worst part. So please, 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 no matter what it is, build your family relationship. And it's not something you're just gonna.
So I think that is where I think that's where the crux of a lot of these challenges exist, right? Because it is easier said than done, right? Because what direction does build the relationship with the family go, right? In terms of, is it me that has to build it? Is it me receiving, where do we meet? Is it meeting in the middle? Is it actually, no, it's not gonna be a balanced one. This person may not have the same capacity as I may have. So these are the nuances and the complexity of dealing with relationships. I don't wanna simplify it. I think what you're saying is Allah chose to put you and I in a certain family. That is God-given, meaning that is haqq. There is a truth to that and there's a trust that comes with it. Now again, the normal challenges of life is that many of us don't meet our trust, right? We don't fulfill our uqud. We don't fulfill our covenants with family, with community, with Allah. That's the test of human beings. So the challenge does come down to how do we build these relationships in our family to feel a sense of comfort, security, safety, trust, to be able to express and go to them in the moments of difficulty. And that is at the heart of a lot of these issues. Most of the people here, and we're just a microcosm of something bigger, we actually would rather go external to our family because we don't even trust sharing it with our family. And that is a problem we have to solve. So saying it 100% with you, doing it now is the more practical steps that we have to take as a community to figure out how do we do that? How do we break that problem down? Any final questions? Let's limit it to questions, not comments.
Just curious, can depression be genetical?
Yeah, 100%. So there are definitely people who are more predisposed towards the, to even mental, like, not even just depression, schizophrenia, like there's a lot of the mental health diseases that exist that are genetic and they are passed down from generation. They skip one, go to the next, and 100%.
Yeah, I was gonna just ask you guys, like, in your experience, with like dealing with clients and things like that, so like, on the topic of like family relations, like, for example, like with this topic as well, like, they might be the reason that you're feeling this way. So what's, I guess, is there like maybe some stories you could share or like some advice? Like, let's say you figure things out and now you're, you've got a headspace, but then you still have your family that, that's what you were born into, now you're trying to help them guide through things.
So, yeah, this is part of the test, like one of the biggest tests that we have in this life, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses to put us together. Sometimes in this country, there's the verbiage that's used is like the family I chose versus the family I was given. We actually enjoy, like we almost honor that to a fault. We say that the friends, you guys are the friends, you're the family I chose to be with, but I have no connection with the family Allah gave me. And from our standpoint as believers, there is divine wisdom in the family we were given by Allah, and not the family that we could just choose, right? And so that comes with multi-layers of challenges, right? It comes with the challenge of personalities. Allah is literally putting people who come from the same genes, the same womb, putting them and mixing them in a space. They all come with different personalities. They all come now with also years and years and years of the same upbringing, but are disturbed and disrupted in very different ways. And Allah is saying, you have to figure out how to live together. You have to figure out how to love each other. And you have to figure out how to grow now and fulfill the trust. That comes with a lot of challenges. And so and you can see it in the prophets' families themselves, right? And from the beginning, from Adam alayhi salam, literally from the first generation of creation, Allah gave us the example for a reason to say the two sons of Adam and Eve, one of them killed the other. Like, it doesn't get more clear to us that we are going to have challenges in our family because the first story of the first creation's family killed each other. And so that now seeps into the generations and generations that came from that. And so for us, we do have to reflect on what is it that's in my control and what's out of my control. And I think a lot of times that's where the pressure comes for us, is that we believe everything needs to be in our control. And I need to be able to change everything, and I need to change everyone, and I need to make the situation. No, actually, you have very limited capacity in the larger scheme of things. And that's why a very crucial ayah that I think transcends everything that we've been talking about. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. That Allah is not going to change the state of a people until they change the state of themselves. But there is an individual responsibility that I would put back on ourselves to say what is in my control to change, and how do I start to model the right behavior, the healthy behavior, but then at the same time constantly go back and tap into the family members where there may be challenges and see if you changing your behavior could have an effect on their behavior changing. And sometimes it won't be. They'll just be like, it's your fault. They're not ready to take the step of changing themselves. And so it's not going to, and that's where we do have to come in with at least a deeper understanding of what do healthy Islamic boundaries look like within the family situation. And every situation is different. There are extremes to it. And so, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. I'm just saying, like, as a person who, alhamdulillah, I would say now, I have three siblings. It hasn't been until all of us left our jobs and started to work with each other that we actually started to feel like real brothers and sisters. Like I feel that for 20 plus years of my life, I actually didn't know my siblings in the way that I do now in the last 2 years because of the challenges that I had to fight within myself and the challenges they chose to fight within themselves for us to actually come together. And I just don't think that we as families give ourselves enough space to be able to do that. And that just leads to the expansion of problems, and the shaitan just enjoys it and lives in those moments.
I think about go ahead.
Do you think we could talk about forgiveness sometime?
Oh yeah. Imam Majid, mashallah, is an expert that goes around and does workshops on forgiveness, not only for the Muslim community, but how it can actually save nation states 100%. Inshallah.
I'm just waiting for him to get his first Nobel Peace Prize.
Inshallah.
So, sure.
I will make this very quick. It's a comment that probably, there's a question about comment. So the number one thing that I have personally seen from everybody around us, people want other people to care. And people don't care anymore because they're too busy to care. With whatever they're busy with, but they're just busy with it. And the number one people that we want to care are our family. Well, specifically mothers and fathers, or even just mothers, I guess. You know, I'm not taking out the fathers, but you know, mothers and fathers. So with that being said, my question is, well, another comment, because Ashakwa right? And then Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't have any family per se. And he had the most burden that anybody had had. And he didn't complain to anybody. He didn't go to a therapist. He didn't have anybody to talk to, except for Allah. So let me just finish.
No, go ahead, we're ready, go ahead.
Ista'inu bis-sabr was-salah, right? So, okay, I am sabur, I am basalli, everything, but I still feel some type of way. So why am I looking for this? Is it normal? This is the question. Is it normal for human beings to actually look for that in another human being, or are we just conditioned to do that? Because we know, oh yeah, I have family, they must care.
So let me just, a quick point. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ also talked to people when he felt difficult. And for example, when they went in, was it the year before Fatih Mecca, and he asked the people, you know what, we're going back. And then the Sahaba around him said, we're not going to go back. He said, well, you got to shave and we got to go back. And they actually found him, they're not going to do it. What did he do? He went back to his wife and he talked to her and said, you know what? They're not following what I'm telling them to do. And when she said, you know what, go outside, shave, and do what you need to do, and they will follow. So that simple example, when you go back into when Wahy came to him, Jibreel alayhi salam, in the beginning, when he was scared, frustrated, what is the first thing that he did? He ran back into his wife. And he said, you know what? So the fact that our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ absolutely talked and shared and again and talked and again and shared whatever that is that he was going through, that's that example. So he was not just specifically talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he again chose the shura, and around him, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Umar ibn al-Khattab, they talked to him, they shared his thoughts on how he felt about his wife when they dealt with this area. So that's the example that it's not about just specifically talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's actually the complete opposite. We need one another. We need to reach out. And we need to talk to each other. And we need to seek guidance. Even the Prophet ﷺ did it. So we need to follow that in that sense of how
Yeah, 100%.
And I know we have about 10 seconds. So just two questions that I would like for each and every one of you to ask. This is your homework for this week. I know I gave you guys plenty of homework, but this is the only question I would like for you to think about between now and next Thursday, inshallah. The first question is, what is one thing that you're willing to change your own self, starting today. And think about it, right? I mean, again, we talk about a lot of different things, a lot of different emotions, but one thing that you're willing to change. And then the second question, what is one thing that you would like the community to change? And inshallah, we'll start with that question, inshallah, next week when we dive a little more deeper into it, inshallah. But how would you like to close this out, inshallah?
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. Ya Allah, we ask you with all of the beautiful names that you have taught us and all of the beautiful attributes that you have shown us. Ya Allah, we ask you in your ultimate mercy, in your ultimate love, in your ultimate care, you have created us, and you only created us from a place of love. You only created us from a place of mercy. You only created us from a place of care. Ya Allah, you put us on this earth. You have tested us in ways that only you know. We ask you, Ya Allah, with that care, with that love, with that mercy that you created us with, to get us out of it, to help us, Ya Allah, heal us, grant us absolute healing within ourselves, within our bodies, within our minds, within our emotions, within our spiritual selves. Ya Allah, heal us in all ways that are possible and heal this world. Allow the love, the mercy, the compassion that you created us with, allow it to permeate through our lives with the people that we know, that the people that we care about, the people that are around us, the people that you have created us through and with. We ask you, Ya Allah, to make us beacons of hope for all of those who are suffering. Ya Allah, we ask you to make us and use us as the beacons of ease for those who are suffering. Ya Allah, we ask you in our toughest times, in our greatest times of need, Ya Allah, send us the people that will help us and ease us in those moments. Ya Allah, we ask you to grant us the shifa from all of the da. We ask you to grant us all of the healing from the illnesses that you have created, and to allow us to find the cure to all of the illnesses. Ya Allah, you have promised us through your Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam that for every illness there is a cure. We ask you, Ya Allah, to help us find the cure for our community, to find the cure for our world, and to find the cure for ourselves. And that, Ya Allah, you build within our hearts a connection to each other, whether we live here, whether we know each other, whether we have never seen each other. Build the connection of the bonds of love and the bonds of iman based on La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. And forgive us for our shortcomings, Ya Allah. Forgive us for our shortcomings. Help our brothers and sisters that are in our backyards and around the world who are suffering, who are in pain, who are in need. Ya Allah, we ask you to help them and alleviate their pain. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
I need you to come back and help us pack up after Isha. We would really appreciate it, inshallah. Thank you very much.